Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Q Talks. And look at the glare on me. I'm recording this in the evening. Today's my day off. So it's evening right now and the sun is shining on me. So if my reflection from my glasses blinds you, sorry about that. So today I wanted to talk about whether biblically minded people, whether Christians or people who follow the Bible, whether we have an obligation or mandate, a biblical mandate, to support the Jewish nation of Israel. So we're not talking about anything controversial today. We're just talking about that stuff. So yeah, this topic is obviously a very controversial topic. It's coming under a lot of fire. Political unions have been broken up from this issue. A lot of big super PACs about this issue, and a lot of messy stuff. So we're going to try to tackle this in as non-controversial way that I can, because my answer to this question, do Christians have an obligation or mandate to support the nation of Israel from God? My answer to this question is no, we don't. And I'm going to give my reasons for that, so buckle up. Here we go. And I'm going to try to be as serious as I can. I'm normally goofy and make jokes. I can make a lot of jokes about this, but I don't want to get banned from YouTube, so I'll try to handle this with the seriousness that it deserves. So the reason why I say no is because of the way that I interpret the Bible, and not just me, many other people. Let me put this back so it doesn't hit me in the face. I cannot get over how much I'm glowing right now. I look like I look shiny right now. This is a new look. So the way that we interpret Scripture, specifically in the New Testament, is that it has these promises. It talks about promises and blessings for Israel. And people use that to say, see, those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. So if you don't support the state of Israel, then you're not blessing Israel, and therefore you're not, as a nation, then therefore you won't be blessed. And what's happening here is, in logic, we call this an equivocation. Okay, an equivocation is when you use one word that means something else and you use it to mean something that it doesn't mean. And in this case, the word is Israel. We're equivocating the term Israel to mean something that it doesn't actually mean in the Bible. We're not interpreting in other words, we're not interpreting the Bible in its context correctly. So whenever the New Testament specifically refers to the term Israel, and whenever the whole Bible refers to the term Israel, Old and New Testament, it's talking about the chosen people of God, God's chosen people, His elect. And in the Old Testament and in Second Temple Judaism, this was largely understood to mean Jews, to mean the ethnically the Jews. Now, if you interpret the Old Testament correctly, that's not true. Rahab was a follower of Yahweh, and she was not Jewish. She was a Canaanite, and she followed God by faith. This is what Romans chapter 11 talks about, Hall of Faith. I can't remember if it mentions Rahab specifically, but it talks about all of these Old Testament patriarchs. It was by faith and not by their ethnicity. And when you walk over to the New Testament, you see the New Testament writers, inspired by the Holy Spirit, they interpret this meaning, Israel, to talking about the chosen people of God, to be in a broader sense and not just Jewish people. This is scattered all across the New Testament. I'll give a few examples, but a lot of the New Testament, it talks about how Jew and Gentile are reconciled through Christ. So in Romans chapter 9, which is all about the election of the nation of Israel, it talks about how not all who are a part of Israel are descendants of Israel. So that's the word Israel used twice to actually mean two different things. The first time, not all who are of Israel, it's talking about all of the chosen people of God. But then it says, not all who are of Israel, the chosen people of God, are descendants of Israel. That second time, it is talking about ethnically. And what Paul is trying to say there is that not everybody who is a part of the chosen people of God necessarily are descendants from a certain ethnicity of people. And over in the book of Galatians, it talks about Gentiles being grafted into the olive tree. The olive tree is the nation, is Israel, God's chosen people. It was made up of mostly of Jews. And then the book of Galatians talks about Gentiles, non-Jews, being grafted into this olive tree. And so the point is that Israel is, in a broader sense, all of God's chosen people. And the way that the New Testament describes God's chosen people, it is those who have accepted God's Messiah as dying on the cross for their sins. Those who, in other words, those who believe in Jesus. You are part of the chosen people of God. You're a part of Israel. I'm a part of Israel because I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian. So I am a member of Israel. I'm not Jewish. I'm about as Gentile as they come, but I am a part of the nation of Israel in that sense. So the nation of Israel was established in 1948, I believe, based off of these verses that I believe are taken out of context. And they're taken in a way that is understood, where the word Israel is understood to talking about exclusively Jews. And if you have that false interpretation, then that sort of allows you to, it opens up the possibility of you being able to interpret it that way. But I think any clear reading of the verses in context, you'll understand that because it's referring to all of God's chosen people who are not just a part of one ethnic group, that means that the land dispute, the nation, that area of Israel, does not necessarily have to belong to a certain sect of people. And of course, if you're at all familiar with the sort of Israel-Palestine dispute, you'll know in 1948, a lot of people were cleansed from that area. People who have been living there for generations in the Ottoman Empire and all that. I'm no expert in that area, but I am a little bit familiar with it. That I think it was the British Zionists brought the Jews in because of their biblical interpretations, and this led to of course, to the expulsion of many Palestinians, and many of those people, by the way, are still alive today. So they're still suffering the impacts of that. And another thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit, as far as the geopolitics of it, is that I don't believe that Christians have any sort of obligation, or they're bound specifically to Jewish people any more than they would be to Muslim people. I can see why we might be inclined more to our Christian brothers and sisters. I don't see why we would be inclined more towards Jewish friends than we should Muslim friends, which is what many people also argue when it comes to this. So, but the main point is this: once you release yourself from that, okay, so there is no obligation for a Christian to believe that that land was promised to Jewish people specifically. Then what reasons do we have for supporting a Jewish state there, especially considering the fact that it was set up by kicking out a lot of people? But once you look into that, I believe that most of the answers just simply are not that good. Like, for example, one answer that we get a lot is, well, we're talking about the only democracy in the Middle East. Don't you want to support the only democracy? And my answer is, no. Why is them a democracy? Why does that mean that I gotta support sending $3.5 billion a year to this country just because they're a democracy? Like, that is, at that point, that would mean that we would have to send foreign aid to every country that's a democracy. Why exclusively that democracy just because they're surrounded by non-democracies. And why is democracy any better than a non-democracy? They seem to be doing just fine. So I don't see all of the reasons that are given for supporting the state of Israel. Once you release your presuppositions, and once you get away from thinking that I have to support this from this area, at that point there really becomes not much good reason to support Israel. And I used to be a big supporter of Israel. Back when I was 15, I used to watch a lot of those PragerU videos. A lot of people, by the way, have that journey from where I'm from. They start off kind of neocon, establishment conservative, because they're watching the 5-minute PragerU videos, and then they start watching other people who are more, populist leaning, either liberals or conservatives that kind of open up their mind. And really, when you're watching those PragerU videos, a lot of it is talking points. A lot of it is just, this is why you believe it. And I never even questioned. I'm like, yeah, this is true. Never even questioned why that should be something I believe, or the good evidence for that. I just kind of believed it. So once you sort of open your mind to this, you really begin to ask questions, not crazy schizophrenic questions either, like just normal questions, like, why should I support Israel? That seems like a pretty normal question. And when I'm receiving answers that I don't find convincing, well, then why should I take that position? Now, having said all of that, I'm certainly not letting the Palestinians completely off the hook either, because I do think when you look at how long has it been? 60 years. It's 2025, so it's 57 years since that. Since then, there have been a lot of attempts from the nation of Israel to secure peace in the Middle East. The Palestinians and the surrounding armies have ignored them because they don't want, I believe that the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. They want to not necessarily end the nation of Israel, but they do want their original people to return to that homeland. And a lot of the people that have been born since then, since 1948, all they've known is this war, and they didn't have anything to do with it. So, for example, if you're around my age and you're an Israeli, well, what the heck did I have to do with the war that's going on? I shouldn't be considered a settler because I was born into this. Hassan Piker recently got into a lot of trouble because he coined the term baby settler, talking about the settlers when they're born in Israel. The babies are settlers. They're baby settlers. It's like, golly, that's insane. What? You're not a settler if you're born into a land that your parents were citizens of. Like, that's just crazy. So there's a lot of people alive today who have nothing to do with these conflicts, and they're kind of, thrusted in there without getting a whole much of a choice. And it's just so sad. And there's been so many. I wrote a report. This number may need to be updated. I think since 2023, the Israelis have killed over 30,000 women and children in Palestine. People who had, or I think just Gaza actually, people who had nothing to do with this conflict are being massacred, and it's just so unfortunate. But I believe that the Christian position, or I believe that Christians should leave their position up to conscience, what they think. And my conscience, my position on the matter is, I believe that really the United States should adopt more of a isolationist perspective. That's a word to describe a position. It's not a exact isolationist. I just use that word to kind of, gauge how I want to approach the topic. Basically, here's how it would work. Number one, we've got to stop giving $3.5 billion to Israel. There is no reason why we need to be giving them that much money. a lot of that money goes directly to missiles that they fire to use against the other nations, and they've murdered, like I said, a lot of innocent civilians with that money, and I think that that's incredibly unfortunate and very dangerous, and we should not be doing that as a nation. We should be giving our money for humanitarian aid, and the problem with giving money for humanitarian aid when you're in the middle of a war is that humanitarian aid is that money in and of itself is fungible. So if you give somebody money and say, hey, here's for your humanitarian aid, if you give that to Hamas, if you give that to Israel, well, who's to say that they're not just going to turn around and use it for missiles? They probably are. They're in a war. So I do believe in giving humanitarian aid in the form of food, which the United States has squandered a lot of that. We've given them food and we've just let it go on and expired while their people starve over there. And it's very unfortunate, by the way, the famine that's going on there. So you got to stop. Number one, we got to stop the foreign aid. Okay. Number two, we got to stop endorsing a two-state solution. Okay, and I know that one sounds kind of extreme, but I believe that as long as we're endorsing a two-state solution, you're never going to earn any progress. You've got to just let them fight it out the way they want to. And I think that this is a very controversial position that a lot of people might disagree with, but if we stop giving them foreign aid, I am convinced that Israel will lose. The surrounding countries that are Muslim, just like Palestine, they will see an opportunity to jump in. And if Israel is not backed by the United States, I think they're going to get wiped off the face of the earth. That would be my prediction. Of course, that's in the impossible scenario that the United States stop giving money to Israel, which is never going to happen. I'm not sure if we're ever going to get a president or Congress that is not total shills for Israel. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But, so yeah, you've got to stop giving them foreign aid. You've got to let them fight it out themselves. And if Israel does end up winning in that scenario, well, kudos to them. You deserve to be a nation because you fought with your own money and arms and you survived. And that's how that works. It kind of sucks, obviously, for the people who were ethnically cleansed from the land. But if they come in and they move you out and you fight back and the people who got in, they win, well, that's how conquering land works. The stronger person wins. It's just a matter of reality. That's how that works. The United States did it to many people, and much of that was unfortunate, but we did, and here we are, and we're not going back. And the same needs to be said about the Israel and Palestine conflict. They got to duke it out themselves, or stop duking it out if they want to come to a two-state solution. I do not see that ever happening, personally. And personally, I'm leaning much closer to seeing the state of Israel wiped out than I am the West Bank or Gaza. I don't see that even with the United States backing. I don't really see those states because you've got all those surrounding countries that are supporting Palestine. So that's it. That's my opinion on the matter. Hopefully we can keep this civil agree to disagree and not go at each other's throats, that we probably will. I'm certainly putting this out there at my own risk because I started this channel sort of to honor Charlie Kirk, and he died from his political disagreements. So we'll see how that goes with me. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like the video down below, subscribe and all that. Blessings from the Stafford family. The Lord bless you, keep you, makes his face shine upon you. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.